The United States Supreme Court has just delivered one of the most consequential decisions about presidential power in modern American history, and the implications are enormous. For months, Donald Trump's legal team argued something extraordinary. They claimed that a former president enjoys sweeping immunity from criminal prosecution for actions taken while in office. If accepted, that argument would have fundamentally reshaped the balance of power in America. But the Supreme Court has now spoken, and while the ruling is complex, one thing is clear: the justices did not grant the kind of absolute criminal immunity Trump's attorneys were seeking. Today, we're breaking down exactly what the court decided, what it rejected, and what this means for the criminal cases moving forward. Stay with me, because this is not just about one man. It's about the limits of presidential power itself. Trump's attorneys built their strategy around a bold constitutional theory. They argued that a president must be immune from criminal prosecution for official acts taken while in office. Their reasoning was rooted in separation of powers concerns. They warned that allowing prosecutors to charge former presidents for official conduct could politicize the justice system, chill presidential decision-making, encourage retaliatory prosecutions. They also pointed to historical practice, noting that no former president had ever been criminally prosecuted for official actions. At its core, the argument was simple: if presidents fear prosecution after leaving office, they cannot govern freely. But that argument raised a profound counter-question: if presidents are immune from prosecution for official acts, who holds them accountable? The court did not give Trump what his legal team wanted. The justices rejected the idea of absolute criminal immunity for former presidents. However, they did recognize that presidents are entitled to certain protections for official acts, and they created a framework for determining which actions may be shielded and which may not. In other words, the presidency is not above the law, but it is not treated like an ordinary office either. The court distinguished between official acts within core constitutional authority, other official conduct, private acts, private conduct, no immunity, core constitutional powers, significant protection, other official acts, subject to legal scrutiny. This nuanced ruling means that lower courts must now analyze each alleged act carefully, rather than dismissing immunity outright or granting blanket protection. This decision joins landmark cases like United States v. Nixon 1974, rejecting absolute executive privilege; Clinton v. Jones 1997, allowing civil lawsuits against sitting presidents. Each time the Supreme Court has been asked whether the president stands above the law, the answer has ultimately reinforced constitutional accountability. But this ruling goes further. For the first time, the court directly addressed whether a former president may face criminal prosecution for official acts. That question had never been squarely decided before. Now it has. The most immediate impact falls on the federal election interference case. The trial had been paused while the Supreme Court considered immunity arguments. Now, the case returns to lower courts with new guidance. Here's what happens next. The trial court must determine which alleged acts qualify as official. If an act falls within core constitutional powers, prosecution may be barred. If the conduct is deemed unofficial or private, prosecution can proceed. This process will take time, and time matters, especially in an election year. Legal analysts expect additional motions, hearings, and possibly further appeals. While the court rejected sweeping immunity, it also created a framework that may delay proceedings. So while the ruling narrows Trump's legal defenses, it does not immediately end the litigation. This ruling is not just legal, it is political. Supporters of Trump argue the decision protects the presidency from partisan prosecution. Critics argue it still grants presidents too much protection. Both sides are claiming partial victory, but what stands out is this: even justices appointed by Trump joined in rejecting absolute immunity. The court did not split along purely predictable political lines in a way that would grant full protection. That fact alone carries symbolic weight. It reinforces the court's institutional message: the presidency has unique constitutional authority, but it does not operate outside constitutional limits. At the heart of this ruling lies a deeper issue: what prevents abuse of executive power? The framers of the Constitution rejected monarchy. They built a system of checks and balances, but they also created a powerful executive branch. This decision attempts to balance two competing principles: the need for energetic executive leadership, the need for legal accountability. Too much immunity risks lawlessness. Too little protection risks paralysis and politicized prosecution. The court's framework attempts to walk that tightrope. Constitutional scholars describe this ruling as a structural decision. It does not resolve the criminal charges themselves. Instead, it sets the rules of the game. Lower courts must now separate policy decisions from personal conduct. Constitutional authority. From campaign activity, official governance, from alleged criminal conspiracy. That analytical process may shape how future presidents are investigated, long after the current cases conclude. This ruling may define presidential accountability for decades. Let's clear up some confusion. This ruling does not declare Trump guilty, dismiss the charges entirely, grant him full immunity and the criminal cases immediately. It also does not mean future presidents can act without consequence. The court rejected the sweeping claim that any official act is untouchable. That is significant. Here's what legal observers expect. The case returns to the trial judge. Hearings determine which alleged actions qualify as official. Appeals may follow. Trial timing remains uncertain. This means accountability, if it comes, will likely arrive through extended litigation, not sudden resolution. History offers perspective. When Nixon argued executive privilege, the court unanimously rejected him. When Clinton argued temporary immunity from civil suit, the court rejected him. Now, when Trump argued absolute criminal immunity, the court declined to adopt that theory. Across decades, one principle consistently emerges. Presidents are powerful, but not immune from constitutional constraints. Regardless of political preference, this case tests the boundaries of American democracy. If the court had accepted absolute immunity, it would have created a category of public officials shielded from criminal law for official acts. Instead, the court signaled that criminal accountability remains possible, subject to constitutional analysis. That distinction preserves a core democratic idea. No office holder stands entirely above the law. This ruling is bigger than one trial. It affects future administrations, prosecutorial standards, congressional oversight, executive branch decision-making. It will be cited in law schools, courtrooms, and constitutional debates for generations. It may also shape how voters interpret the rule of law in modern politics. Trump's legal team sought a sweeping constitutional shield. They did not receive one. The Supreme Court rejected the theory of absolute immunity, but introduced a structured approach. That may complicate prosecution. The presidency remains powerful, but the court has made clear it is not beyond constitutional scrutiny. What happens next depends on lower courts, juries, and the legal process. The evidence will be tested, arguments will be examined, and the American system, however slow, however contentious, will continue operating within constitutional boundaries. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new chapter in defining presidential accountability. The trials will move forward, the legal debates will intensify, and the nation will continue wrestling with the question that has echoed since 1787. How powerful should a president be, and who decides? The Supreme Court has given its framework. Now the courts must apply it. History is watching. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next major development. Because the story is far from over, I'll see you in the next one.